All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to GICTV episode 8, the business of golf coaching for the ego or for the future. I've got Sandy Jameson and Ben Bunny, a couple PGA members. Sandy's down at Oakley Golf Club or Oakley Golf Course down in Melbourne. Ben Bunny at the Ranfurly driving range as a head professional. I'll let them do the intro, just for the fact that they've got a pretty extensive background with from a playing standpoint and in more recent years over the teaching. So we'll get some great insight on the business of golf coaching, growing the game of golf, and anything else. So, thanks Sandy and Ben for coming on this morning. I appreciate your interest in this. And let me go over to you, Ben, just quickly. What are you seeing in the industry right now with people coming back in with COVID and that influx of people? Where's our opportunities to retain them and keep growing our game?
Thanks, Mike. Happy to be here. I think that's a very good point you make about the COVID, because the last lockdown we saw a massive amount of people come back to golf purely because golf was probably one of the sports you could do. But before that, there's definitely a lull in the industry, if you like. More so, the changing of the model, changing of the business model, as we just spoke about before, where golfers can now not have to be members of a golf club to actually play a lot more, resulting in less income for the golf club as a business, but really fits into the pocket of the player that wants to do that. So I think in that respect, I'm pushing more towards beginners and junior golfers in my industry, definitely as my role as director coaching at Ranfurly, making sure there's programs and pathways for those golfers to come through into the membership. And then when we see the parents of those juniors or the friends of those beginners choosing not to become members and playing on a monthly basis, you can't help but think that they're going to influence that golfer also to say, hey, I'm just going to do that too. I revert back to when I was a junior and a beginner playing, and I was on the golf course every single day, to the point where there was no option but to join, because it was the cheapest way to do it, and mum and dad could drop you off and I could just stay there all day. That breed of junior is gone. It's no longer. So how do we move into the next pathway to accommodate our new members coming in, to possibly boost up the income of the business? Number one, have the parents involved. Number two, and then lead that into a flourishing career for them to keep playing golf throughout their life. So I think my view all the time is golf's healthy. I view it that people play it all the time, but just not as much as what they used to. So I think Sandy might have some other comments on that too, maybe possibly even you too, Mike. But for me personally, I think golf is healthy, but we're seeing the lull in numbers due to a number of factors. That was just, in my opinion, one of the biggest ones that I just mentioned then.
Right. And Sandy, I know you've had some great success with the one club golf approach. I'd love to hear that and some of your insight on growing the game in our industry here, I guess more in the Australian market than anywhere else.
Yeah, look, I mean, I suppose sometimes people get a little bit put back when I sort of mention why I've done what I've done. I mean, I spent 24 years as a full-time coach. I never earned a dollar any other way, and which is quite a new thing, because it never was that way. It was always a club professional who coached, and they had an assistant, and we'll touch on that a bit later on. But I coached for ego, which is where that came from. I sort of wanted to coach the best players in the world. I wanted to coach the golfers who sliced it, and I could be the man. And they said, oh, he's the man. He can turn me around really quickly. And I wanted to coach at the best facilities. So I followed that pathway. And 24 years later, I was coaching at one of the best clubs in the country, coached a whole lot of really good players, past and present. And I looked around and I saw the golf industry, especially in my area, a lot of the public courses that feed the industry were down 50% or more over 20 years. So being a golf coach, I realised I was actually part of a failure. And I think in any other industry, if you were employed in that industry and it dropped off by 2% a year, you'd be sacked. So I went back to public golf because I saw a huge opportunity to focus on new golfers. And my one club idea was really, how quickly can I get someone out in the golf course proficient enough to play and understand the game to start contributing to the industry. So pre-shutdown, before COVID had an effect, the business was up 50% based on the previous year. And it was a turnaround pre-COVID. So I was sort of ruining COVID because all of a sudden golf became popular without us as an industry changing anything about what we did. And there's a lot of people pretty smug about saying, oh, you know, we're okay, we're fine. And I go, yeah, that's great. And it's good in the short term, but what have we done to change the industry to keep those people and attract more people when the competition opens up?
Yeah, through my travels, I see so much is based on the culture of that facility, and I try not to use the word club because we have more offerings out there than the standard club model. But with all our facilities, it's the culture. It's that owner or it's that board that sets the tone. Or in your case, your case is you're the champion of that. Your passion is in growing the game, so you'll make it happen. Where a lot of our facilities don't have that driver, or they don't have that as part of their strategic plan. And then you mentioned before we started just on how years back where the clubs would allocate time for juniors just for the fact that they knew the importance of it over the long term, not just for the few dollars that they have.
That's where they got their members from. So it was definitely that was was passed on through my generation. And with what Sandy just said about coaching for ego, a little bit of that is me, but the majority of that is I'm going back to what I learned growing up and who I got coached by. And I was lucky enough to have Sandy as one of my coaches too when I was going through my VIS playing days and all that sort of stuff. And it's like I said, it's not wrong that people do that or take that path. It's more to the point of how are we going to keep the golf industry rolling or make it flourish more than any other sport, which is what it used to do when we grew up. Yeah.
Sorry, Ben, I go back to the famous golfing quote, the world needs ditch diggers too, Danny, from Caddyshack. If everyone's at the top, high flying, who's going to provide the groundswell of golfers coming in? And we can get into this in the remuneration later on, but if you're at a club like the club I was at, when I started, there was a full membership and a waiting list, and 9 years down the track, there was no waiting list and no full membership. So I was part of a failure, yet in my role and no role, I've done a lot of interviewing clubs to get to where I've got now. Nobody actually put the criteria is here's our membership levels. And if you positively and negatively affect this, that's your job. If it goes down, well, you've failed your job, and that's I think where we're at.
Yeah, that even all our awards, I know it is that we're talking about the ego side of things. I know we always want to have the top player. Even ourselves as players, when you ask, what's the first question people ask? What handicap are you? What club are you a member at? It's always about what skill level. If you say, oh, I'm a 25 handicap, people perceive you differently. And if you say, oh, I'm a 2, oh wow, and we always put that good player on the pedestal, which enhances that ego of a golf pro wanting to have that title of I've coached these different people. Maybe we need to be looking at awards that are for the pro or pros that brought in the most new players this year, or has the most new golfers into a program.
They actually have that, the game development coach now, rather than just
the last couple of years. Yeah.
But I think one of the things, before we could talk all day, but one of the things that I'd like to say, everyone says the golf industry is disjointed in getting people to get into it. One of the things we can't forget is every single PGA member was at one point a player of good standing. We're competitive by nature. So, if you stand on the first tee playing against someone when you were playing, you wanted to beat them and you believed you could beat them. And I think some of that flows over to our professional careers after. I can do it better than them. And I think that comes out a lot. Ben,
any thoughts on that?
Yes, of course, 100%. It's that's the background you come from, and that's what you've learned growing up. So how can it not be a part of what you're thinking? And everyone wants to be the best at something, and definitely becoming a PGA member was one of my goals. And I didn't, I was one of the late bloomers. I didn't do my PGA. I did my bridging course after my playing career when I was 25. So that's pretty much a late bloomer at that time. People were doing it when they're 18, 17. Whereas now, not so much. It's not, people are going to uni, and it was more the sports person back when I was growing up, and I'm showing my age now, was if you did sports, it was sports. Now, if you do sports, there's a uni degree you can get for it. So it's definitely it's not so much the PGA career. It's got a business background towards our industry, which again, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But as Sandy said, we're all players coming into it, and that should never leave you. You should have that competitive nature about you. And when it comes to teaching golfers, me personally, I use it as a positive. That's just the way I am. I think that's what separates us as PGA pros compared to, your I don't want to sound bad here, but your everyday YouTube video or something that keeps us in a job in my industry. So I actually don't mind. I encourage people to watch YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, for the fact that we're, you're all on here today and giving up your time, it shows our passion for the game and how important it was for us through our career. It's guided us into many opportunities, meeting many people that we never would have otherwise been able to meet, and playing, traveling, all the host of things. So it's been a great sport for all of us. And, I think that now's our time to give back, as we get, older and more wise, I guess. We look at giving back to the industry has been so good for us. Move a little bit forward, I guess, with the onto the remuneration side of things, and then the business model, of coaching, or the business model of growing the game. Love to get your thoughts around that. On the current one, is it the standard 70-30 split, and you pretty much get to teach and you get exclusive, and that's sort of the standard, or 80-20? There was a lot of conversation on some of the Facebook posts, I think from yours, Sandy, with around that as well, and the different models, and it's sort of, this is where I wanted to get this out into the open a little bit more and have another chat about it. I know, Sandy, you're running a business there. What should the model look like? What should the new model look like?
Okay, well, firstly, I think that both PGA professionals and management never really thought about full-time teaching professionals. So when I finished my time, I went out as a full-time coach. There wasn't very many full-time coaches. Typically, it was the club professional at the club who did some lessons and might have had an assistant that did some lessons as well. So when we went out, no one really thought about remuneration. They just took a percentage, and I don't think that's very clever. And I don't think that it's sustainable. And we can see that by how many great coaches have left the industry to sell houses, drive trains, put out fires. I think if you go back to the public golf courses, and I'm passionate about public golf because that's where everyone starts their journey. And when I walked into the Oakley public golf course, and on a Saturday afternoon, people were sunbaking on the tee because no one played golf. It was dead. It was down to 17,000 rounds a year, from a high of 42,000 rounds a year 20 years before. So if you go back 20 years before, when the PGA pros were contracted, they got a percentage of the green fees. And the deal I went in on, I get paid per player that plays the golf course 7 days a week, and I keep 100% of my lessons. So for me, the incentive is to drive up the business, which, as I said, I did by over 50%. So in a 6-month period, the business was up nearly $100,000 on the year before I was there. Yes, I did very well out of it. I did far better out of it than I was coaching, giving away a percentage for lessons, which I didn't do anyway, but would have been my other option. And I think because my motivation was to improve the core business of the facility, being players playing through there, and then the residual food and beverage and sales they get from that, everyone wins and we flourish. And I'm not looking to sell houses or drive a train because I'm doing very, very nicely. Thank you.
Yeah, but by putting that type of model, it's just really a marketing cost. You can put it onto a marketing line and say, look, instead of us doing ads out to the paper or whatever other way you promote, we just give it back to you for creating more revenue So it's a revenue share, and there's alignment there, I guess. And that's what I think, Ben, you mentioned earlier, just getting alignment, that there's alignment more with that model, I think, Sandy.
And absolutely. And we go back to what I said before, and we're talking about being competitive. I mean, if you just put someone on a salary in a golf shop, which happens, human nature is to stop performing. You have to have managers setting KPIs for them all the time. Did you meet your target? Did you meet your target? But I'm in a situation where day by day, I can see the player numbers come through, which affects my bank balance. And I go, right, bang, I need to get the player numbers up. So I'm motivated from a personal point of view. Everyone wins. Everyone wins. And we need to get back to that, because simply saying I'll take 20% off Ben for his coaching, I don't think that that's very clear in the goals. Like I don't know whether in Ben's case or other pros who are listening or managers who are listening, I don't know whether they had that conversation. Like I said before, okay, here's our core business of golf rounds. If you make this go up, you will see a value into the future. If it goes down, well, you might want to look to go and sell houses or drive a train.
It's holding you accountable, right? So yeah, go ahead, Ben.
I think I'll just touch in on that too, because I think with that exact sentence that Sandy just said, taking the percentage of the coach has been a prehistoric situation, and it's happened. It just keeps happening. So when you get someone that can actually push the envelope, like Sandy's doing, and saying, hey, you know what, I can actually increase your business by this. We all know that's what is a big part of it as coaches and as PGA pros at a facility, being able to quantify it, being able to actually bring it to the table and say, hey, this is what I did. What's fair, sort of thing, is that's our biggest hurdle to get over as PGA pros talking to managers, or vice versa, as in to say, hey, I can actually put 10% on your business turnover from last year just by doing A, B, and C. Being able to quantify it and being able to take that to the table is our biggest hurdle. And the biggest thing that I found, especially in my job, is actually counting the numbers and actually saying, you're running a business here. I've got to look at it down the track and say, how can I improve your business? What are your KPIs? And that's exactly what I expect out of a management company if I'm being a contractor to them. Otherwise, you can just go along your daily business and do what you want to do. As Jamo said, when does the competitive beast come out? And that's the sort of person you need to be if you want to get ahead in the industry. Otherwise, maybe selling real estate you go.
Yeah. And I think too, it depends. It's horses for courses. So at a high-end private golf club, say Royal Melbourne, they don't need more members. So the role of the professional is just to keep the members happy. But if I'm a golf coach at, say, a third-tier golf club, I won't name any of them because no one thinks they're third-tier, and they need more members, but I'm specialising on fixing slices or hooks. Well, we all know through being in the industry, very rarely does someone quit the game. So I might be making them happy, but I'm not helping the business. And so I need to be focused on growing that business, or the public golf course I'm at, I need to make it full. Because if the public course is full, then people want a better golfing experience and they'll join that third tier club. So it all flows on.
Yeah. So when pros are being or managers are being contracted or employed, they're more or less being employed as a service provider. Like the Royal Melbourne example, where they're there to provide a service, fit a club, or give a lesson to their members or whatnot. Where the other one, you're more probably a business development role or a marketing role. Right? Just changing that context of what that professional is. You're not just teaching, but you're engaging them to become long-term members, because the value of a member, or the value of a new client, we can't undervalue that. That's a 10, 20 year engagement in some cases, or longer. And that's all started with our, you two or a golf professional, starting that journey of a lifetime. What's that worth? And I guess that's I think there should be some way of remunerating that in fairness to both sides. If they stick around for 20 years, you get a little trailing fee, maybe. I don't know. Is that a little bit too crazy to look at?
No, 100%. That's where it needs to be. So let me give you an example. I've written a few different stories, and there's one story about a lady called Janet. So November last year, Janet rang me, and she wanted to learn golf. And I explained to her the way I work. It's $100, whether it's you or it's 4 people in the group. So she's immediately going, well, okay, if I get 3 other friends, it's only $25. So she did that. They all bought a one club, which was $40 worth. And there's 4 lessons only in what I do. They never asked for the follow-up lesson. And I never offered because they were playing 3 times a week. Now their numbers swelled to 7, and they were playing 3 times a week. Sometimes they brought their husbands along. I tracked that. In 5 months, they spent just a hair under $7,000. And I, as a golf coach, gave 1 lesson. So in a traditional role where I'm only getting paid if I'm giving lessons, well, that's no good for me. I'm going to keep trying to push lessons, but I don't need to push lessons because they're happy. So if I create a new customer for a business and I stay at that business, I've created that customer, the business is benefiting, but I'm not benefiting. So if you want to keep a long-term relationship with a coach that can build your business, you should be paying. So my wife, for instance, works for one of the major banks, and part of her bonuses, if you like, is shares in the banks. But she's got to keep working at the bank for so many years to keep getting those shares in. So they recognise to keep a good staff member working, you have to reward them, and they're getting, you know, longevity out of it. So I think definitely the golf coach, if they're doing a good job, should be paid into the future, because the golf coach has done a job that's created a trailing income for the business, be it membership or ongoing green fees. So like I've done, I get a cut out of that, and it works for everybody.
Yeah, I think, Jam, I'm just going to jump in there too. And also just, you know, the stuff that you just said then, back 30 years ago, that was the job of the PGA head professional. Now, in our industry now, as you said before, we're seeing a lot more people going out doing a coaching business on their own. So not so much the head professional. So when we're talking about remuneration about that, and, you know, the head coach, like you said, is supposed to be a service provider for your members, you know, then the club's taking a percentage off that head coach for that service. Like that's the business model that always has been for the last 30 years. I'm not sure that's right in certain instances, and I'm sure that it is right. We were talking to Tony off air just a couple of seconds ago, and he was saying about the number of coaches in our industry, or PGA pros in our industry, where the levels are quite different as to what you want to do as those coaches. So when you get to a person like Sandy is a classic example, going into a business, a struggling business, and flourishing it, then yeah, he should be remunerated accordingly, because every other industry does that.
Sorry, Ben, to cut you off, because it's a really important point. I think the golf industry pivoted about 25 years ago when clubs and management took over golf shops and public golf courses. It was always the way in the past when golf was starting in this country. Like an example would be Brian Twight at Metropolitan. They started the golf club. They went to Sunningdale in the UK and bought Brian out to grow their business, to create members and create interest. At the public golf courses, the champions of the Dennis Lucy's at Yarra Bend, who made a fortune, Philip Hollingsworth at Freeway Golf, they all got a percentage of the green fees. So they all ran beginner programs, and the first thing they did what they did at the beginner program is they got them ready to play golf. So they were paying green fees, contributing to the business and growing their income. Now that's stopped. And I think that is also, you know, everyone talks about all these other reasons for a decline in golf, but I think what I've done is really taken that model back and shows that it works. And I think we need to have that. If the golf course is busy, the pro makes more money because they've made it busy.
Yeah, I have no problem with that model if it's very clear in how that the pro has directly affected the business. So I think you've got a way to measure that. If they're growing the business, if they're doing, the baseline, they get paid X, and then if they're growing the business up and above that, then it's a sales role. Once again, and you have to find a sales personality. Not everyone could be a good salesperson, but you want someone that's really hungry for growth in that space versus someone that goes, oh, okay, well, I'll just wait for them to come to us. And unfortunately, I see that out with a lot of our pros don't have the right, I guess, that personality to go drive business and engage and want to grow. They just sort of wait for the phone to ring. Maybe that's just industry wide.
But how are they being remunerated in the first place? So if the pro is being lazy, if you made it very clear when you're employing the pro that this is what you have to do and this is what you get, but I don't see that. I don't see that anywhere. I don't see that anywhere in the discussion. Like Ben at Ranfurly, if they said, okay, all of a sudden, if we've got a waiting list at Ranfurly, you're going to get another 30 grand a year because of the programs you run. We'll give you $30,000 because we've got a waiting list. I guarantee you, Ben's going to be working his ass off to create a waiting list at Ranfurly.
Yeah, because with the golf management companies that I've used to work for, we had these bonus structures in place for all department heads, and we considered our director of golf as one of our department heads. They were in all our meetings, be it food and beverage or maintenance or sales, etc. And we had a bonus structure over the whole business. So ones that were dependent straight on their input in their area that they had control over. And then there was a smaller percentage based on the entire business. So we tried to tie all our department heads together to work for a unified outcome versus one trying to drive a business at the detriment of another side of the business. And we got them all pulled together. And having that structure, clarity in that structure, and some accountability, I think is a key outcome maybe from this discussion. It's just, how do we build that business model and show it to them? And the pros sign off that, yes, I agree to this. And if I don't, then I'm out. And on the other side, the club puts up their commitment. And if they don't fulfill their commitment, then something happens on their side. How do we move to that? How do we get some of these, how do we get some of the managers and boards to understand and to sign off on that type of arrangement?
I think, just jumping in there quickly, Mark, I think definitely what I said before about being able to quantify it, being able to take it in numbers, and saying to a board, okay, well, this is what I've done last year, this is what I continue to do. I think any businessman will be jumping all over those numbers. It's not a big issue. It's just a matter of us being able to articulate it in our meetings. Be included in meetings is another big one too, like what you just mentioned about how your management program does include those sort of people. So I think from a golf coach's point of view, you're probably not going to see him in any of those meetings, which is a shame in our industry. But again, that's the prehistoric approach. So we have to break down that barrier and almost force our way into that room, which, as you can see, Sandy has done so. So that's the way to do it.
I think the answer, and this is going to sound, some people will shake their head, but the answer again comes back to education. And it's education in the value of what you can bring. I don't think many golf professionals know the actual value of what they bring to the table. And because we've never spent any time doing it, we've been so busy working in the industry, fixing Bill or Mary's slice, thinking, oh, I've done a great job. So we quantify our value. So effectively, firstly, and some people fall over. So someone asked me in management the other day, well, what do you think a golf pro is worth per hour? And I said, I think it's in line with other people who professionally give information. So a financial planner or an accountant and so on, we're talking a base of about $350 an hour is what I think a golf professional's worth if they know their stuff. Now, they're not going to get that. The market's not going to pay. Like, Mike, you're not going to pay me $350 for a 1 hour lesson because the market doesn't say it. But there's other values behind being a golf pro. It's a great job, it's a great atmosphere and so on. But if we know our value and we can go to a club and say, listen, I can do this for your business and we'll organise my remuneration based around how your business does. Now we're talking big numbers. So the big golf clubs, turn over about $6.5 million a year. And if you're looking inside a $6.5 million a year structure, remuneration, there's room for it. So that's what I think we've got to educate in our value and actually go into the room and say, I will give you this, rather than just apply for the job that's advertised, you know, do 40 hours a week of coaching, give me 20%. But we've got to go there and say, no, I've got a better idea.
Yeah, so it still gets back to that, the person employing or the board that's employing to change that PD around the job description around to, you know, not do the task, but, you know, your main goal or main role at the facility is to bring new golfers in to get more members in, and then, you know, remuneration will be based on, you know, lessons or X, and everything else is percentage based, you know, on growth.
Do you know, Michael, I agree and disagree there. I agree and disagree, and I'll tell you why. I agree that that's the way everyone sees it, but us golf pros, we're rare. We are very rare. Like when I qualified, out of 80 who wanted to get in, only 25 got a start, and in 3 years, only 4 of us got through. There's no other industry like that. So it's not like there's heaps of golf pros. If every teaching professional had the attitude of saying, this is what I can provide. So when they advertise a job down the road at the driving range with an 80-20 split, you apply for it. But every single golf pro goes in and says, listen, I've looked at your business. I know this is what you've advertised, but this is what I want to offer. Well, then the clubs, the ranges, the business, they'd have to pivot, because to get someone to provide the service that everyone wants, they'd have to look at it a different way. So I think the ball's in our court, and we can't wait for management to make that shift, because they won't. There's no reason for them to make that shift.
But I think with that, I appreciate the feedback, and I guess it gets back to that education piece again, because if it's a business model that you can put forward and provide a case model of, you know, say what you've done at Oakley, or, you know, other facilities have done by changing it, what the long-term benefit has been. I think that's where you will start taking real notice and saying, look, oh, okay, well, they've done it there and this is how they did it. No one wants to be the first. Yeah, at least in this market, we tend to want to see it done first, and then, you know, then we'll adopt it later. We're very slow to adoption of innovation here. But if we can start showing those case models and stories, you know, what is actually happening because people are driving it, you know, I think that's where, you know, we'll get that change on that side of the equation. And then, of course, yeah, for us from a golf professional standpoint, you know, sending that same message. Look, let's look at it differently. You know, we can put this forward. Yeah, here's what we can do. Here's what I can do. I've done it before. And be confident, I guess. But, you know, do people want to put their confidence out, or, you know, really want the job or need the job?
You know, and there is a bit of that. But I know the conversation I had with Bluefit, who managed the Oakley golf course. I went in there and basically gave them a proposition where the worst they were going to lose over a year, if I totally failed, it was going to cost them about $15,000 more than they were already paying out. So for them, it was only a $15,000 risk, but that's part of my proof of concept. Instead, you know, they've made, you know, well over 100,000 extra than what they would have. But we're providing a risk-free thing. And I don't think a lot of golf clubs, especially, like, they're run by board of managers, they've got a GM there, but effectively most golf clubs are run by amateurs who give the GM a plan of what they want. But if you walked into, say, a third tier club again that didn't have a full membership as a coach, and I said, listen, I'm going to help you get more members, and when you get more members, I expect a percentage out of it. They've got nothing to lose. Nothing to lose at all. So I think it's a very easy thing to negotiate. And most golf clubs, managers, committees, if all of a sudden they interview 4 golf pros for a coaching job, and 3 of them turn up and go, oh yeah, this is what I do, this is how I fix a slice, and one of them before the interview's gone and interviewed the club onto what their KPIs are, what their goals are, where they see themselves in 10 years' time, then they turned up to the job interview, which they're going to get because the club go, this person's different, and said, well, this is what I'm going to do for your business. This is how I'm going to tailor my golf tuition and my improvement business around your club's financial goals. They'll be going, yep. And say, well, this is what I want. That effectively, I'll bet you 9 times out of 10, the club will say, where do we sign?
Yeah, you know, Sandy, that's a really valid point there. I know you and I have spoken about that personally too, but definitely If we go back that 10 years, I reckon, even when we still had head professionals got too busy to do their own coaching. And that's just my opinion only, and they ended up outsourcing it out. But also there was a chance to make revenue there for them on a percentage split. So that's probably where that model has come from. Me now moving from the shop to coaching only, and I did that about 5 years ago, has been the best decision I've ever made. But I've had to look at my coaching as a business. So what you just said then, it makes massive sense to me, because then, I look at all these jobs advertised on the PGA website and golf courses alike, and the wording that is in there in regards to a head coach is all about, it is expected that you would do this. It is expected that you would be there for this amount of hours, but we're going to put you on a contractor scenario, not a wage and pay you sick leave and all that sort of stuff when you're not there. So me as a business coming in, I've got to make sure I'm bringing value to the business. So, but also running my business in amongst it. So my point is that back 10 years ago, nobody looked at coaching as a business. It was more a part of the business from the head pro.
Yeah. Mate, it's the passion. It's the passion thing. We all ended up in the golf industry because we're passionate about it. Mike, you said this earlier, they took the job because they needed the job or whatever. They wanted the job, which is back to the topic, the ego. I want the job. I want to be the person that everyone turns to. So we've been so busy working in the industry, we've never worked on it. And no one's going to take the time to do it. I know the General Managers Association has gone from strength to strength really over the last 25 years. And this is not a them versus us at all, but their general managers, their job is to look at the business and plan for the business, whereas we've never done it. And we can create a great partnership to make them all look better. And my coaching business, and you can't get a golf lesson with me, Mike. No one can get a golf lesson with me if they're an existing golfer. Every day I refer maybe 10 clients who already play golf away, and I keep my diary as open as possible. My goal, all I want out of my business is to get 10 new golfers a week. So if someone rings up, can I learn how to play golf? Yes. When do you want to do it? Whereas if I had a book full of 15 handicappers who sliced it or hooked it, I'd have to say, I can fit you in now. That's not my business. I've no interest in that. I can do it, but it's not, if I do that, the golf industry will, this sounds egotistical, the golf industry will go back to a steady decline, because who's driving the new golfers?
Yeah, because that 15 or 20 handicapper may always be a 15 or 20 handicapper because of not because of your lessons, just because of other circumstances, lack of practice, lack of skill, whatever. But getting those new ones in, and the first time a person hits a sweet spot, even if it goes 20 meters, that feeling, that elation, that the look on that face. Exactly.
That's my club.
Yeah.
That's my club. It's all about that.
Yeah.
And
that hooks them, right? That's where you get the hook. And
it's addictive.
I don't care if they're 50 handicappers or 2, but what we said earlier is that we all, we get ranked on where we are as a player versus you just love the game. Great, let's go play. Some basic etiquette, whatever. I'm just happy to play with people that want to be out there and enjoy it the same, regardless of what level. And that's I'd love to hear that too, that you're saying that, just getting them to get that little spark of, I really enjoy being out here. I don't care. At some point in time, they may get frustrated and not want to continue because their expectations going to change. And, over time, maybe they'll get better, maybe they won't, but let's keep them hooked into it as long as we can.
I think for me, one of the biggest shifts, I went into my one club business with certain ideas that were going to happen. And then they, for the most part, happened. But the stuff I learned was, why do people play golf and what do they enjoy about golf? And for a lot of them, like Janet's group that I mentioned earlier, they're not very good by the terms of what any other golf coach would say, but they love playing golf because they love the social side of it. They like walking around a golf course. I think sometimes we forget how beautiful golf courses are. So we introduce people to golf on a driving range, which is not a beautiful place at all. So, and some people never leave the driving range to play golf. So I actually I put some stuff out there on social media, and I never gave the answer. I've got a definition of what a good golfer is. And I say in my programs, I can get someone who's never played golf on the course playing within 15 minutes, and they'll be a good golfer within an hour. And I can do that every time. So a good golfer is somebody that A, can do it safely, B, can play at the speed that's required to allow other people to enjoy the facility as well. Next, they have to understand their own level of competency. So the swing, length of swing and effort they can put in to progress the ball forward without losing it. And the last one is to look after the golf course, because we're all golfers, and we know when you've played a Pro-Am in the past, you don't care how many shots the other players have. You just want to make sure that it's going to be safe, that you're going to move at the right speed, that the golfer understands themselves to the point where they don't get frustrated and become a turd to play with, and they look after the joint. And I think we've lost track of that as coaches. I think we all pin our hat back to the ego thing. Look how good my players are. Well, I'm sorry, I don't care how good they are, what score they can put on the board. All I care about, are they having a good time? And are they visiting my centre a lot? That's all I care about.
There's always the comment back about the cost of the game. And I think what you just mentioned there with those 4 points is about, people, it's how much value they put on what the value of the spend. So if they're out and they're enjoying themselves with people that they enjoy being around and playing it at whatever level that they're capable of, they're willing to pay whatever. It's not it's not, oh, it's too expensive. Because we're in a lot of ways underpriced in this region down here, and it's crazy. We undervalue ourselves in so many places, and we're not going to play there. It's $10 more than somewhere else. Okay, we got the value equation completely upside down.
So sorry to sort of keep butting in and hijacking, but I get really, really pissed off when I hear excuses. So you hear management and golf pros say, oh, no, well, people haven't got as much time anymore. They haven't got the time. They haven't got the money. I mean, they're BS excuses. If you said that if you were going to run Qantas when Alan Joyce took it over and turned the thing around, he's not going to make excuses. The time thing. I said to someone today, I said, you're kidding me. Over the last 10 years, crowds at football matches have gone up. Now, if I want to take my kids to the football, doesn't matter which code you're thinking, I put them on the train, I drive them in there, or put them on the train, or I drive them in there. It's a day. And the price is through the roof. And yes, it's a family activity, which is great, but so can golf be. And that's another topic we can get onto. These are just excuses. Anyone who says that people haven't got time anymore, I go rubbish. Anyone who says it's expensive, I say rubbish. For a family of 4 to play golf at my venue, it's going to cost them $54 for 9 holes. And it's a 2-hour activity tops. We just make excuses. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, and that's a cheap exercise, really. At $54, just taking them to movie world here on an annual pass, that's going to be $50 just in a short lunch. That's not very healthy, and we're happy to pay for it because the kids are happy. So I love to hear your thoughts, Ben, around the family, I guess, and diversifying out to different age brackets, which we spoke about earlier. Husbands and wives and grandparents and everything else. And what are you seeing, or what experiences are you having down at Ranfurly?
Since Ranfurly's just got a brand new driving range, and this is its second year, or coming up to the end of the second year, and we're seeing a lot more people coming to the range and using the range. I'm consistently running beginner clinics every single month, and exactly like what Sandy said, the breakdown's been they come to the range and they hit balls for an hour, and then they say, "Is that it? What else do I do?" So it's definitely not the time consuming part of it. It's more where's the next step for them to go. So definitely Ranfurly's, it's gotten pretty busy over the last 2 years because of this range, and it's been definitely a different clientele coming in the door than what was there. So us as the the golf pros there, trying to make pathways for them to play has been one of the biggest challenges. And I think Ranfurly's on the ball with it now. They've got super membership options over there, but like we said before, they're paying less for more. So, that's the sort of pricing structure, I guess, you see in a lot of different industries as well. So I think golf's going down that way too. But when it comes to families, they're all for it. It's more providing them a venue to play at. Now, Sandy hit the nail on the head again with that 9-hole course in Oakley, because it is family friendly. It's beginners welcome. And, there's not too many golf course signs that say beginners welcome, and especially, your membership clubs probably don't want that anyway, because they provide membership for a reason. But definitely for us, our biggest challenge has been being able to create more programs, more opportunities for them to come out and play, not just your 1-hour range visit. So that's probably the biggest challenge that I've had personally at Ranfurly, being able to provide the golf course for them. And as I said to you, when I was growing up as a junior, they shut the course down for us. So we're not seeing that too much at any golf courses anymore. And then people are saying, oh, juniors are going to play other places, other sports, all that sort of stuff. And I think it is a little bit of a cop out, especially for me in my business, without being too upfront. My junior program has been fully booked for the last 5 years. And I mean, like, fully booked. So I'm struggling to put juniors in, which I think every single golf course should have it. But you're seeing it not so much because the stigma is that they're not welcome. So yeah.
It's interesting you say that, Ben, because I think one of the challenges we face in the golf industry comes back to government. And what I mean by that is, if you look at Golf Australia, who are very well intended, all their funding for developing golf comes from government funding. So they'll get grants to get juniors into sport. They'll get grants to get women into sport. They'll get grants to get seniors active. So these are things. So if you look at the Get Into Golf program, which has got, you've got My Golf for the juniors, you've got Swing Fit for the women, you've got My Golf Women, you've got seniors, and so on. What we've done inadvertently is taken away our competitive advantage, because our competitive advantage is everyone can play golf together. So we actually segregate it. So no offense, Ben, but junior programs are a great revenue maker. I don't necessarily think they do great things for golf. So I had someone in Golf Australia, when I had a meeting with them, I think they wanted to hit me, because they were in charge of the My Golf program. And they said, are you going to run a My Golf One Club program? And I said, listen, I'm sorry, but whilst I think juniors are important, I think junior golf programs are a waste of time. And everyone, when they first hear that, goes, oh, I don't agree. Junior golf programs are a great way to make money. But when you look at the kids that come through your junior golf programs, and I've coached kids for over 25 years. I had the biggest program in Australia when I was at Ringwood, 500 kids a week. The kids that go on to play golf are the ones who have a family member that plays and takes them to golf. The kids whose parents don't play golf or grandparents don't play golf, they come to your junior clinic, and they come once a week, and they don't pick a club up in between times. For the most part, there might be 5% of them that do. And then they might take to golf in 30 years' time, which is your delayed effect. That's great. But if I want kids to play golf, and I've proved it at Oakley, if I can introduce their parents to golf who want to bring the kids to golf to do something with their kids, now mum and dad or grandparents bring their kids to golf weekly to spend time with them with the thing they can do together.
Yeah, Sandy, I agree 100% with your how do you say, your interpretation on that. But from my point of view there, who's taking the kid to the junior clinic? So it's got to be a parent who loves golf or a grandparent that loves golf. Generally speaking, the avenue has been that then how does that grandparent or that parent take the kid onto the golf course?
Yeah.
So that's where I think the stigma is broken down in golf. In junior golfers is, back when I was playing, it was you had an hour lesson and then you had 9 holes of golf. That was just it, and they shut the course down. It was basically after your hour lesson, you go on the course, and you had pros going around doing that. But in this day and age, on a Saturday, it's not going to happen. Like members are not going to give up the course for that, or a public golf course is not going to give up that revenue for that. So
you're right, because when I first started at Oakley, there was no concession rate at all on the weekend. You couldn't get a junior rate on a Saturday. You had to pay, and that was the same when I was at Ringwood in 1998 when it was booked out all the time. There was no junior rates on the weekend because I'm thinking about the short-term dollar.
Yeah, that's just the I guess that's the way the industry is at the moment. So anyway.
Yeah, no, great. No, it's a great insight. I'll just one last final question, and we'll get some parting comments from you both. There's a recent announcement with Callaway taking over or merging with Topgolf. The interesting story from Chip Brewer from Callaway and Dolph, can't pronounce his last name, from Topgolf. Just where they're focusing on the entertainment value. You go to the Topgolf up here on the Gold Coast, and they had someone said a number of like 450,000 visitors in their first year coming through. I don't know if you've had a chance to come see it, but you said
we're not allowed at the moment, mate.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, we haven't announced it today, so we'll see maybe before Christmas. But yeah, the place, it's a triple decker, 90 bays and 6 per bay. Just to get your thoughts, because you go over there and have a drink and you sit back and you see who the people are, and each level is almost a different style of music and a different demographic they're targeting. And there's gals in high heels and short skirts getting ready to go out to into the nightclubs, and surfers, and they're out hitting balls and they're laughing and drinking, and and they barely get the ball off the ground. Doesn't matter. They get a target, they get a little spike of excitement because they got they got 1 point. But just get your thoughts around that entertainment value, and is that what we're talking about a bit more with this family? Because I know with my kids, I've got a son that plays soccer. I don't come from a soccer background, but I still take him to soccer practice. I still sit there and watch the games. I don't have any emotional attachment to the sport by any means. But it's be the same with golf in some cases. As long as we set it up that way. But you've got Top Tracer, you've got all these different approaches we're going, and gaming with this new generation. Where do you see that fitting into our industry? I guess the entertainment value, and is that what we should be offering at our facilities where we can? Even mini golf is going through the roof at some of the venues that are putting it in. It's family. Families can do stuff together. So how do we do that with golf?
Yeah, I'll jump in first there, Mike, and mainly because when Ranfurly built their range, Topgolf was the model we looked at, and we even looked at putting it in at Ranfurly, but it had a high expense with it. So I've been to the Topgolf in America, in Las Vegas, so I know exactly what you're talking about with the party atmosphere. With Ranfurly and my experiences so far, it has been a game changer. So we've been talking about the time consuming and all that sort of aspect of what has been interpreted through our industry as if to say, people haven't got that much time at the moment. I think when it comes to this sort of level of entertainment, who is it really attracting? So what was really interesting with Ranfurly is we found a lot of families coming. We found a lot of juniors coming to the range, and families in particular. So how do you convert those people into your members? And if you're at a facility, especially like the course I'm at, Ranfurly, where it is a member-based golf course too, that's our main prerogative, to get people in the door and then try and sign them up to membership, making it cheaper to play more aspect. But one of the biggest things that has taken off at Ranfurly has our premium rooms. So the premium rooms are basically, you hire it out and you can fit 4 people in a bay. And it's like Sandy's model of it's going to cost you $100 by yourself to hire that bay out. It's got the automatic tee and a TV in there that you can watch whatever you like, or you can split it with 4 of your mates, $25, get a couple of beers, and away you go. That business model has been fantastic for our golf club. It's attracting we spoke about this before, it's attracting the 20 to 30-year-olds, which at a golf club 10 years ago was non-existent. It was either juniors or it was people over 40 or retirees. So when you're coming to that sort of aspect and filling your membership and filling your course, I think it's a no-brainer to do something like that, but it does come with a high expense, and it's not for every golf course. Top Golf have done a massive play on it, trying to get a lot of people involved, and I think they're success. That's just my view. I think Sandy might have something different. I'm not sure, or yourself, Mike. But I think bringing that style of model to Ranfurly has been a game changer for us in that area. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, just one comment, and then over to Sandy. That the story it's spoken about, because the one on the Gold Coast is 90 bays plus 12 private bays.
Yeah.
I think it's 12, something like that. The ones in Vegas are bigger, and they've talked about having their smaller models because of the footprint and the cost of, this was $35 or $40 million. I mean, the cost of that return, it's just not feasible in many markets. Auckland in New Zealand couldn't even have one. They just don't have enough traffic for maybe a small version they would, or the top tracer coming in. But they were looking at doing the gaming effect where all the booths are tied together anywhere in the world, and they ran a little trial competition online with 7,000 people playing from different venues, different locations, and playing in one competition, which I think that's where the big swing is going to be, or the one up here at Golf Central Brisbane Airport, where you do the top tracer, and you're going to have a long drive contest running all day, and people hit off the top tracer and go for the, it's on Facebook. Oh, I better get down there, I can hit it further. And that gamification side of things, that is really just unlock a lot of our new spectators and new golfers.
Potential, yeah.
Potential.
Look at our constant fights and arguments on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram now about wearing hoodies. Where do you think that's come from? It's the entertainment side of it, isn't it? And that's what young kids do.
Yeah. I think we need to just always keep in mind that golf is something we do in our leisure time for enjoyment, and so yes, it is entertainment. I think that far too many golf clubs, the top clubs can stay the way they are. Obviously, people want that experience, at wearing a certain clothes, having an etiquette, social etiquette and so on. But the people I'm seeing through the golf course, I had two guys come in the other day, said, "Oh, sorry, we're 5 minutes late." And I said, "So what? Mate, I don't care. There's someone on the tee. Someone came early." He said, "Oh, the guy chewed us out at the other course." I said, "Well, the guy's a dick." Because the people we're talking about that we want to attract, they're from a different era. They're not going to be turning up on time all the time. They're going to dress how they want to dress. And we need to remember that golf is a game. It's like, the fish can't see what the boat looks like when you catch it. Golf ball doesn't care what you're wearing. Golf ball doesn't care what time you turned up. As long as we can find a way to manage the flow, we've got to become more accommodating to what other people want rather than try and push them to how golf's always been.
I think at that entry point, especially where, that could turn someone off from playing the game at all, versus you've captured them in. And over time, some people will appreciate, and they do appreciate the higher level club and the etiquette and the dress codes and all that later on. As an entry point, though, it's a big turnoff. I know we had a national conference on growing the game years ago with GA, and we had urban golf. I don't know if you've ever seen the urban golf stuff where they play in the streets and carry a little piece of artificial turf around. But it was very funny. It was held on the Gold Coast, and everybody that attended was in very relaxed attire and shorts, and it was a hot day, and and then the guys from urban golf showed up, and they had a jacket and a tie on, which was completely the opposite, because they thought, oh, we're very traditional, we better show up with jacket and tie, and just had to laugh because that was their impression of our industry. I mean, this is 10 years ago, but that was the impression of the industry. We're like, no, you guys, we're all relaxed, and so it just, we have to understand that mindset. Like you said, it's a new person coming in. We don't want that to be an obstacle. Get them in over time. If they want to play Royal Melbourne, they'll appreciate the etiquette and the
Mike, I think one of the things is we suffer from being a colonial place. So I lived in the UK for a long time, and went to Royal St George's. We played down there in winter. And I think a lot of the golf clubs here are trying to keep up the appearance of what they think golf clubs are there. But we got rained on really hard. We went in, we didn't have a spare change of clothes for lunch. They gave us bathrobes while they dried our clothes, and we sat in the clubhouse in bathrobes and bare feet having lunch. And this is Royal St George's. So I think sometimes we're trying to keep up a standard that no longer exists. Like in the American hats in clubhouses, all that sort of stuff. I mean, really, it just doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter, except at your top clubs where people want to, wear the old school tie, if you like.
Yeah, and we understand that, we appreciate it, and we have a choice. Where the entry point, third tier, second tier courses, we need to be a lot more inclusive. Excellent, I appreciate that. Any closing thoughts? I guess just on the state of the game, steps we should be looking at moving forward to the listeners. What can the golf pro do tomorrow or today at their facility to get this started? Get a hold of you guys, I guess, for one, but what steps would they take? Go ahead, Ben.
I think Mike, that's from my point of view, definitely the person that walks in the door at my venue for first time, I want them in front of me, definitely 100%. It's my job to, in my eyes, this is with my business, it's my job to make they have a welcoming effect when they walk in that door, and making sure that they know it's golf is a game for everybody. And touching on the dress codes and the time restraints and all that sort of stuff, it really is a stigma that's been brought on our industry, and it's got to let up. And it's when you go to the movies, you can walk in 5 minutes late, and stuff like that. So definitely for anyone who does want to start up playing the game, 100%, the first stop is with a golf professional. 100% walk in the door, and you're going to be welcomed by him or her. Definitely females in our industry is a rarity, and they're worth their weight in gold. So I'm instructing all of PGA pros to be that person, and it's just your duty, your care to do that. And just think about when you were a young player or whatever, when you first started playing, you got to fall in love with the game as soon as you step in it. And like Sandy and yourself have said, as soon as you hit that ball out the middle, you've got them hooked for life. So, it's your role to take that on and continue their journey. So whatever you can do to do that is a massive positive.
Yeah. And my take on that, I agree with everything Ben said. My take on that is take responsibility for the health of the industry. It thrives or it dies with you as the professional. Value yourself, because no one else can do it. There's no one sitting in an office. No one has the skills to introduce the person to the game. Everyone needs you as a golf professional to do your job and take responsibility for the industry. If you look at it and your facility's gone down in numbers, that's a direct correlation to what you're doing. And you need to make sure that you target your coaching to grow the business. You can have some ego time. So if you want to coach, there's certain people you like, you can split it. You can 25% on what you like, 30% on how you're going to grow the business, and you'll be surprised at what you can do.
I love you had that goal, Sandy, of 10 new golfers, every week. And that's a compounding investment, grows and grows and grows. I mean, that's you think about those numbers alone, if they equate to that $7,000 number that you had with just 4 that you initially started with, it's it's huge.
Well, the problem I've got is I've only got a lifespan at that golf course because I'm going to get it so busy you can't get on there. So my budget was 200 new golfers, and that golf course is back to 40,000 rounds a year. So all I need is 200.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good model right there. My goal was, you've trumped me. My goal was 12 new golfers per month. So, and I get probably around about half of that, 6, through beginner clinics. So, junior clinics, but yeah. So
Ben, sorry
for them to play.
Yeah, but yeah, so sorry to be sort of blunt.
Bearer of bad news.
No, I'm not a bearer of bad news, but I'm going to be blunt here. What do we define as a new golfer? To me, a new golfer is someone who plays regular golf. If they come to you for a beginner clinic over 5 weeks, they're not a golfer yet. There's someone who's practicing hitting a ball. A golfer is, to me, someone who pays green fees or a membership by themselves.
That's where your business model is much more down the business side of it than what mine is. But I'm doing my best.
There's an interesting thing around terminology. I'm sorry, we probably could talk about this all day now, but the terminology of things, do we change ourselves from being a golf coach, which has certain connotations for many out there, versus being a golf business professional, changing our terminology of what our role is, our PDE description. Two is, what is the definition of a golfer? And that was somebody that played 3 times a year, I believe, is the standard one. But does someone play on Wii golf or Tiger Woods golf, Top Golf? Are they considered golfers if they've picked up a golf club? I mean, if we look at that type of thing, I think even the funding models, the national funding models, can change because it's based on participation or participation numbers. Maybe that's a participant versus a golfer.
Absolutely. And the thing for me in where I used to try and create, to try and teach top professionals, for me, I've got a feeling that I'm getting long in the tooth now, but let's just say coach for another 30 years. If I don't teach a single golfer who has got a handicap, don't do a single one, all I'm doing is just beginners all the time, I reckon I'll be more successful as an elite coach than I ever was, because if I can produce a huge number of people playing golf, good golfers will just come out of it. It's just a product of it. It's like a bigger pyramid. I think.
You can't be a good golfer without being a golfer. So that's that pathway, I guess. That's still that pathway discussion.
Correct.
Right. Oh, great stuff. Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Ben. I really appreciate your insight and taking the time out today, and just sharing some. It's hard to use the word. It's innovative, but at the same time, it's just common sense. It seems like. So let's just keep spreading that message out there. Look forward to catching up with you guys in person one of these days. So if you are up my way, let me know, and next time we can get down there, same. We'll go out to Top Golf, have a beer, and critique all the golfers out on the.
That'd be good. And if you want to play a decent golf course when you want to come down to Melbourne, we'll get you on one.
Absolutely.
Okay. Final question. How did you get into the game, Sandy and Ben? Who introduced you to the game?
My father gave me a cut down club. This isn't it, but there's a hickory cut down club. Cut down club, hit a ball. That was it.
Yep. And Ben?
Exact same. My father took me to golf one day purely because he liked it, and then he ended up giving the sport away, and I kept going. So it was funny, but yeah, my dad introduced me as well.
Yeah, same. I'm from a cousin on a holiday. We used to surf, and then nothing to do during the day, so let's go play golf. I'm like, oh, what's that? Never seen a golf course before. Gonna drink beer? Yeah, okay, I'm there. And now 32 years later,
you're still drinking beer.
You're still drinking beer. I've moved to gin now, but and beer. But I think when we look at our national programs and entry points, there's a lot to say with the family component and introduction that way as a starting point.
Don't do that, mate, because that's my business. Leave them do that.
We need to scale yours out, Sandy, to other. We need to franchise it. Thanks, gents. Really appreciate the time, and have a great weekend, and hopefully things get back to even more normality for you both down there. And looking forward to catching up in due course.
Thank you, Mike.